I'm going to keep this straightforward because I know a lot of you are sitting on the fence, wondering if you should spend a solid chunk of cash on a new Micro Four Thirds system or keep using the older DSLR you've been patching up. The big question is whether the Olympus OM3 actually delivers the kind of reliability and flexibility you need when you're traveling, shooting in unpredictable weather, or trying to squeeze the most out of a single lens setup. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's break down the real-world experience so you can decide if this camera fits your workflow or if it's a detour you'd rather avoid. First off, the OM3 leans heavily into a classic aesthetic. The premium metal body feels solid, almost like holding a piece of photographic history, but it's not just about looks. The IP53 rating means you can shoot in light rain, dusty streets, or even a chilly early morning frost without worrying about the internals getting compromised. For anyone who spends a lot of time outdoors, think travel vloggers, nature photographers, or street shooters, that kind of peace of mind is a practical advantage. It's not a foolproof waterproof rating, but for most shoot-and-filmance scenarios it's more than sufficient. The sensor is a 20-megapixel stacked BSI Live MOS, paired with Olympus's TruePic X processor. In practice, that combination translates to decent dynamic range and a fairly clean image up to ISO 3200, which is where most of us start to see a little noise creep in. I tested it on a dimly lit restaurant and the colors stayed true without the heavy post-processing you sometimes need with other Micro Four Thirds bodies. It won't outshoot a full frame in absolute low light, but for its class the performance feels balanced, not overly aggressive, not underwhelming. Autofocus confidence is a big concern for many buyers, especially when you're moving from a DSLR that had a dedicated phase detect module. The OM3 uses a contrast detect system that Olympus has refined over the years. In bright daylight it locks onto subjects instantly, which is great for street photography where you need to capture fleeting expressions. In lower light, it slows down a touch but still finds focus within a second or two. The downside is that it can hunt a little more on fast-moving subjects in dim environments, so if you're planning to shoot a lot of indoor sports or wildlife, you might feel that limitation. Stabilization is where the OM3 really shows its travel camera pedigree. The 5-axis in-body image stabilization IBIS works well with the bundled M.Zuiko digital ED 1245mm f/4 Pro lens. That lens covers a useful focal range from wide angle for landscapes to short telephoto for portraits while keeping the aperture constant at f/4. Because the lens itself doesn't have optical stabilization, the IBIS does the heavy lifting. In my hands, handheld video at 30 frames per second stayed smooth even when walking, and stills benefited from up to 4 stops of shake reduction. It means you can often get away without a tripod in a CAF or a cramped city alley, which is a practical time saver. Speaking of the lens, the 1245mm f/4 Pro is a solid starter zoom for the Micro Four Thirds ecosystem. Its constant aperture is handy for consistent exposure when you're zooming, and the optics are sharp enough that you won't notice softness unless you're pushing the corners hard. However, the f/4 maximum isn't ideal for low-light shooters who prefer f/2.8 or wider. If you need a true low-light workhorse, you'll eventually want to add a faster prime, something like the 17mm f/1.8 or the 45mm f/1.8. The good news is the Micro Four Thirds mount offers a wide array of lenses, both from Olympus, now OM and third-party manufacturers, so expanding the kit is relatively painless. Just keep in mind that each new lens adds weight and cost, which can affect the monocamera versatile appeal. Menu navigation on Olympus cameras has a reputation for being a bit dense, and the OM3 is no exception. The interface is packed with options, and while the layout is logical once you get used to it, the learning curve can feel steep if you're new to the brand. The 2.36 million OLED electronic viewfinder is bright and detailed, which helps when you're trying to find settings on the fly, but you'll still spend a few minutes digging through the custom function menus to set up your preferred shooting modes. For seasoned users who love fine-tuning, this depth is a plus. For beginners, it could be a source of frustration. Battery life is another practical factor. The OM3 uses a newer lithium-ion pack that, according to Olympus's specifications, delivers roughly 380 shots per charge. In real-world use mixing stills, video, and EVF preview, I'm seeing around 300 usable frames before needing to swap. That's decent for a travel camera, but if you plan long days of shooting without access to power, carrying a spare battery or a compact USB-C power bank is advisable. The good news is the camera charges via USB-C, so you can top it up from a power bank or laptop.